Welcome to the Branded Impact Podcast. On this show, we go beyond surface level branding, honest conversations with industry leaders, behind the scenes of aligned brand building, and actionable insights to help you elevate your presence. I'm your host, Jocelyn Espejo, aka Joe. Hit subscribe and join me each week for the Branded Impact Podcast. Welcome back to the Branded Impact Podcast. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Meredith and Jessica Lindsay, founders of Prospect Events, an established and innovative leader in the events and experiences space. They have worked in over 35 countries and serve as a strategic planning and production partner to organizations around the globe. I cannot wait for you guys to check out the type of events that they put on because these are not small little mom and pop things. I'm talking huge industry events. So ladies, thank you so much for joining us. And can you start by sharing what even inspired you guys to start Prospect Events?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us on. We are honored to be here and to be sharing our story. Mara, do you want to take her through how we started?
So, Jessica and I met over a decade ago. We both did events for a tech company. We worked in-house at a company called Particle, and we worked together and we produced many events for the company, anything from an industry conference. We did our own conference and we did a lot of parties with performers. We worked really, really well together and we jived, and we thought, well, why don't we just do this on our own? So in 2019, in November of that year, we spun off and started Prospect Events, which was, if you can put the timing together, we always like to have this in 4 months before the pandemic, which is an interesting time to start an events company, right? Because you can't actually do anything in person when that happened. But we managed to get through it, and we succeeded by doing different virtual events and building different connections with various predominantly tech companies, because that was most of our contacts. And here we are now, about 7 years in, and we do full service event planning, including strategy. We found a big gap in the market. We had worked with different production companies that didn't incorporate any type of strategy. And because Jessica and I had worked in-house on marketing teams, we have that kind of aspect in our brain to automatically put strategy into the events that we do. So we assist our clients with that. While we produce beautiful events for them, we're always thinking about the strategy that goes behind that and what their end goal is.
Jessica, I
Yeah,
guess, could you clarify a little bit what that strategy
sure.
piece looks like?
Absolutely, yes. And that makes sense that it's a little bit of a gray area. However, there's two types of strategies that we're involved in, right? So there is event strategy, which is what I see as, how are we going to put all this together and what's the flow and what's the goal of the event just overall, right? So a lot of the events that we do are marketing events, and we work with a lot of marketing teams and executives, and we really pride ourselves on sort of moving into what we like to call the marketing seat at a company. We get involved with their team. We get to know them really well, understand what their wants are and what their needs are. We even go as far as integrating into their Slack interfaces. Sometimes those companies will give us our own email addresses and things like that. And so when we were working internally at the tech company where we met and ran their global events, we worked with a lot of production companies like ours, and we worked with boutique agencies. We worked with larger agencies as well. And what we found is that any events agency can make an event look pretty. However, they're not sitting there with the team, with the client, trying to understand what their goals are for that event. So, what is your attendee count? What are those goals? And how can we entice people to get them there? What's your ROI goals? Like, what are all the KPIs that you're looking for to ensure that this event is a success and that we make your team look good in the process and with the final results. And so we also take into account things like branding and what their branding is going to look like in the space and what their designs are going to look like and how we can really showcase their business, their brand, their product in the best way instead of simply just designing the event and planning it and executing it. We're really we're in lockstep with them to understand what their needs are throughout the entire way. And I did want to mention that we also do events outside of marketing events as well, company offsites and executive offsites and sort of incentive trips and president's clubs and things like that.
Well, and that's a huge piece that a lot of people don't think of, I don't think of, whenever you're coming to
Mhm.
putting on an event or where you're looking for help. But one of the things that I've always said, and I'm like, I'm not doing another one again until I can afford to bring on someone that can help because there's so many facets that go into it. But yes, they can look pretty. And there is so much that you guys are doing as far as what's the seating look like? And do we even pick a venue that has enough space for it? And are you going to need a stage? And then is that piece in the background? But then I love that you're bringing in the branding, because I have been to events where I walk in and I'm like, what are we here for? What is this? Am I even in the right place? And then I've been at events where I feel like the branding was so on point that I thought, this is amazing. And it may be because I'm in the branding world, but I walked in and I said, wow, like they did a really great job so that you know exactly where you are. And
Mhm.
everywhere you look, there's a touch of this business and something about their values or something that's going in. And so it all came down to the experience. So I think it's amazing that you guys have found a way to offer both, because I
Mhm.
think a lot of people may not even realize that it's needed.
Mhm.
They may just think,
Yes.
I just need an event. So if I don't know to even ask the question, like I just need someone to coordinate making sure I have enough pieces. But then now you invest all this money and you're missing out on all the opportunity to really, you've got a captivated audience. They're sitting in a
Correct.
space for an X amount of time. So what are you doing with them? I think that's huge.
Correct. Of course, I mentioned the event strategy, right? And so, one piece of the event strategy that, because we're events professionals, we understand the market. We really try hard to educate our clients on those aspects. However, from the event strategy piece, because we're assisting the client with managing the budget, and that's a big part of our job, we really pride ourselves though on being client first and understanding what their needs are from a budget perspective as well, and that kind of ties into the marketing strategy piece, because what we like to do is advise our clients on, what they should spend on what aspects of the event. So where can their budget bring the sort of the biggest punch and the biggest impact based on what those marketing goals are. So I think those pieces are really important to tie together. And it kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier, is how do we bring their goals into what we know how to do, and how can we advise them in a way that really creates a moment for them and something that they'll want to do year over year.
That's something that most people, I think, would not really take into consideration. And then there's strengths. So even if you have a marketing team internally, I love the fact that you said that you plug in with them, because there's also the benefits and the strengths of marketing a business and what you are doing on a regular basis versus how do you market within an event. Or one of the biggest challenges that I think a lot of people find is also, how do you even get people in? Like if I'm doing this event, I know for me personally, filling the room has always been one of my biggest challenges. It's like I can find the venue, I can figure out the flow. I think I've got nailed like the experience, right? I could always use help, but that piece, but then it's filling the room. Like, okay, so how do I
Mhm.
make this something that one, I even get people in the seats? And then how do I create this experience so if I do it again next year, people are like, oh, I got to go back. Like, I definitely want
Yes.
to be in there again. So I think that's huge. So talk to me a little bit about how you guys branded your own company and you went from working for somebody to getting the name out there that you're offering this service now and you're competing. How'd you start? Like, what was one of the first things that you did? And then I would love to get into some of the things that maybe you tried and didn't go so well. And you'd like to, if you had to do it all over again, maybe you'd do a little different.
It's obviously all a learning process. And when you start a business, you don't know how everything's going to go and you don't know how it's going to pan out. And so you really just have to try things out. You have to experiment. You have to go with your gut and put one foot in front of the other and just solve problems along the way. And I think that's what Meredith and I have done. When we decided we were going to launch our business, Meredith, do you want to tell her how we named our business?
Yeah. So the name of our business is called Prospect Events, which we do because we have a marketing hat on. A lot of people attribute it to prospecting clients, which it does actually have a dual meaning. However, Jessica and I had both been in New York for many, many years. It's a big part of our identity. Jess's first apartment was near Prospect Park in Brooklyn, and I was living in Brooklyn at the time, right next to Prospect Park. And I was walking through the park with my dog. We were deciding on a company name, and I believe I just called her and I said, I feel like Prospect Events has a ring to it, and it's got a strong name and kind of a dual meaning to it. And we just went with that. So that's really where the name came from, and it's stuck with us now for 7 years. And I think that it goes really well with our company just because of what Jess was describing about our strategy with particularly marketing. That prospecting aspect answers that, but then it also is a very meaningful name with the location of it.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It ties in. So that helps with like, and I love the fact too that it ties in. What motivated you to start this business, but that it ties in with what you do,
Mhm.
because then it's not, people aren't guessing when they hear your name. Like, what do you guys do? Now, how involved are you? What can you provide? There's an opportunity to educate there. It's amazing that you picked a name that has a dual meaning because, yes, it means
Yes.
something to you guys personally based on where you lived and where you started. And I'm sure you can look back now and whether or not you still live next to Prospect Park or not, but you can always at least look back and be like, gosh, that's where we were when we started. And then
Yeah.
that it has a dual meaning. That's great naming. So, what were some of the first things that you guys did to even let people know your story about launching in 2019 or going full time in 2019, walking into COVID? But you guys survived and you pivoted. So, you guys decided to start an event company right at the beginning of 2020 when all in person events shut down, but you went virtual. What are some of the things then that you've done for branding? How did you get your name out there? And then how did you pivot?
When we left the company where Meredith and I worked together, one of the first things we did was let the executives there know that we were starting our own company. And so that was really beneficial to us because we actually took them on as our first client. Yes. So we sort of had the blessing from the executives and, they were always telling us while Meredith and I were working there internally together that one day we would start our own business and they would love to see that. And so they were really encouraging to us along the way. So that was the first thing that we did. We started our business in 2019 at the end of the year, and we secured many contracts through our network for 2020 events. We probably got a little ahead of ourselves how successful our launch was.
You said you reached out to your network. What did that look like?
Yep.
Like, did you call
Yeah.
people? Did you email people? Did you have a website first? Like, did you just start telling people you were doing it?
As soon as we decided we were going to start the business, we got the name, created the logo on Fiverr with, of course, our input and our what we wanted. We let the designer know and he created it perfectly. And then from there, I built our website on Squarespace. So we just kind of, I think, started putting feelers out into our network and let people know that we started the business. And something else that was really helpful is when we were working at the tech company internally before, that tech company had a lot of partner companies. Our network in that way was very strong. And so we were able to let people know that we were going off on our own and if they needed assistance planning events, because Meredith and I think we had kind of made a name for ourselves in that ecosystem. And then Meredith has an amazing network.
Yeah, I think when we left our company, I just honestly told people, listen, I've left, my company. I'm starting a business with Jess. And, we were always kind of known as the Meredith and Jess show, even when we were in-house. That's why a lot of people told us to start our business because we had a really unique style to our events. And this goes a lot with the guidance of our company. They let us kind of push the boundaries more than a lot of other companies that we worked with partners. A lot of I have to give a lot of credit to the executives that we worked under because they were very open to doing very unique style events for the type of space that we were in. So people used to come to the events. It's like, I've never seen a conference in our space look like this. We had built a name for ourselves like that. So when we left, I just kind of reached out and, texted people, called people, LinkedIn messaged people saying, I'm starting a business. We're going to be doing full service production events. Some people respond, some people don't, just like with any sales. And that's kind of how we just started. You don't need a million clients out of the gate. We probably had 5 or 6 really solid contracts and conversations. That's all we needed in the beginning was just us anyways. And then it kind of built off from there. And in the type of space that we work with, it's a lot of referrals. They're like, we don't need your services now. However, I have a friend that owns this business, and then we'd have conversations from there. So it just started rolling in from there. I just talked to everyone and Jess did the same.
The confidence piece. And I love that you said that, right? Because I think a lot of us, sometimes I go to like send a message. I'm like, am I going to be bought? No, not. It's fine. Like, I'm just going to send the message. And we don't get offended when we get them. I don't know why some of us get in our own head as far as like, oh, we're going to be. And it's as simple as we're not interested now, but wait, I do know someone who could. And then I'm sure you've had people who may not have been interested in the beginning, but because you let them know that you were doing it, and when the time comes around, they do. And you guys had already established a personal brand. You guys within a company were already known for the Meredith and Jess show, as you put it. So I think that's phenomenal that you guys were able to take it and run with it.
And
you did it with a Fiverr logo. You built your own website, but you got started before all that was ready. I love that.
I mean, it goes without saying that now with AI and all of that, I mean, starting a business now is, I don't want to say it's easier, but the sort of ramp up and the brainstorming and all of that, like that didn't exist. Like it's like we were like reaching out to our designer friends and our copywriter friends to help us with the copy on our website, which is still on there today. The network piece pulled into every aspect of our business. And I just wanted to mention as well that something that Meredith taught me a long time ago when we started working together was don't ever burn a bridge. Don't ever let go, sort of let a relationship fade out. Always stay in touch with people along the way. And so I would like to say for anyone who's trying to build a business or has an idea to build a business, it's like how to win friends and influence people, like 101. But it really is true. Your network is going to serve you more than anything. And even to this day, our business has grown organically from referrals. We don't have any, sales or, of course we take pitch calls and things like that. But anyone who finds us through a referral, which I think is a testament to not only our service, but how we connect with our clients and how we support them, but also like the reputation that we've been able to build over the past 7 years as well. So those things are really important.
Yeah. And I think just to chime in just quickly on this whole like building the business, I think with women in particular, sometimes we're scared to, do outreach or like, yes, am I bothering this person? But I always say, just think like men have no problem doing that. So just putting that in my mindset it had to kind of change that. I'm like, so what? If they ignore me, that's fine. Some people are going to ignore you, some people aren't, but I have nothing to lose to just try. So I think that's important too. If you are particularly a woman and wanting to start a business is just to kind of go with that mentality.
I think something that we tend to lose sight of is that a lot of times it really is who we know. You never know who the next person that you reach out to or the next person that you meet could open a door that you would have never had an opportunity to. And it's not always that you're looking to foster a relationship for them to be your client. But what you're doing is fostering a relationship because they could be a fountain referral source for you.
Exactly.
So they may not be somebody who is ever going to need to put on that level of an event, but what rooms are they in or what people do they know that are going to put on that type of event that can then connect you or whatever your business is.
Yeah.
And it's leaning into also your zone of genius. Like, what are you known for? And don't be afraid to let that be your superpower. Like the fact that you guys were already known for putting on powerhouse events. And how amazing is it that you also had the support of executives that did all that? But if you don't have that, it doesn't mean you can't go out and do something. So don't listen to that and be like, oh, well, they had it lucky. Because I'll tell you what, no, there is no luck in business. It is all about they had some connections. But if Meredith and Jess wouldn't have had the strength and courage to go out and start in the first place, or even reach out to those people, because if you wouldn't have said anything and you would have just gone and hit the ground running and tried to get marketing and all that stuff, you probably would be in a different place than by now. But talk to me then about the brand experience, because this is a piece that I think a lot of people overlook. When we talk about branding, and at least for me, when I say branding, I am talking about the entire ecosystem of it. I am talking about your visuals. I'm also talking about the client experience and all of those pieces. But a lot of people tend to think it's the website, the logo, the colors, and then the rest of it is I don't know what. But branding is actually in the client experience. And the majority of it is in how you treat your clients and take care of them. So talk to me about some of the things that you guys do, how we've managed to build a business that we don't have to really do sales and marketing externally, because you are doing sales and marketing with your client experience and all those pieces, but it doesn't sound like you have to do paid advertising. And that's a goal for any business. I would love to be in a place that all of my business is coming in from word of mouth and then we're good to go, right? Those are big goals and hopefully I'm going to get there. A big majority of it is, but not enough. I guess if you were to look back and say like, gosh, this is what I attribute it to. What are you guys focusing on so that you can make sure that you deliver that experience every time?
So I think something that to us seems intuitive and like everybody should be doing this in every business with their clients is I think it's really like the ongoing customer support piece. And what I mean by that is that we really are side by side with our client all the time. Like we are there for whatever arises to problem solve on our own, to problem solve with you. Like there is no problem too big or too small for us to handle with them. And so what happens over time is we really become somebody who they can trust. I think we say yes when something can be done. And there are times when we have to tell them no just because things aren't possible, right? And it comes from a place of them trusting us to advise them in the best way instead of just saying, scope or something like that. It's a very sort of like open and collaborative environment where we create a safe space for them to come and just kind of talk to us. And I think our
Mm-hmm.
internal and informal motto is we
Mm-hmm.
are here to make you look good, because Meredith and I talk a lot about, we're not saving lives, but there are people who we work with and our clients where we're working with such big budgets that these stakeholders internally at their company, they're in charge of that. If something goes wrong or the ROI isn't delivered or the event isn't planned in a way that's satisfactory, a lot of these people, their job is riding on the success of this. And this is the biggest project that they're pushing towards all year. And we'd like to tell our team that what we do does have an impact on people's lives at the end of the day, because they're trusting us with guidance, they're trusting us with our support, they're trusting us with their budget, and really their reputation and their brand's reputation at the end of the day. When you get into it, it sounds like a lot of pressure. We try to just, keep our team on a good vibe and a good wavelength and not to put too much pressure on them. We do feel like what we're doing is integral and important to our clients' roles at their companies. When we get sort of locked up with them, and of course we become friends and develop a relationship with them over many years, that's why they keep booking us year after year, is because they don't want to bring somebody new in. Like, they want somebody who is going to problem solve along the way with them.
It's amazing. I guess I have a question for you on this, though. You've got to put boundaries in place then too, though, so that you don't go way outside your scope. And then is that just been a learning process? Like, as far as, because we were in the industry for so long, we had done this for so long, we kind of know. I feel like that'd be a very quick way to burn yourself out on just saying it's
Meredith,
going to
do
be
you want to?
for like
It's
this
very,
projects.
it's very rare, but of course we've had instances where that has happened, specifically on things that Meredith has worked on. So Meredith, maybe you can take her through how we set up kind boundaries and reasonable
Yeah.
boundaries with clients.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple different aspects of our business and how we present our SOWs. Project based, we have very clear SOWs of like what's included and what's not. However, every client is different. I think we do an aspect of retainers as well, which is a little bit, the setup of that is different. It's more that's a whole side of our business that we didn't get too much into, but that's also differentiated us a bit. And kind of going back onto that strategy side, several of our clients, they might have an events team. However, they have such a high volume of events that they need more bandwidth, they need more assistance. So we sit there with them as kind of an extra seat and work hand in hand with them. Then we do have other clients who don't have a built out events team. So we'll really just act as their events people. So I think in the cases of boundaries, that's just been a learning curve. And it's more that sometimes it's like trial and error. When we built this aspect out of our business, we just didn't know so much on that. And, in the scope, if it says something, but it's a little bit of a gray area, the client might just think it's very open and that they can push on this, which quite frankly isn't their fault. It's that we just have to, maybe have a conversation and revise the scope, being like, well, it's within these parameters. So it's definitely been a learning curve on our side. And, that goes for project basis too. I think as we've grown and scaled, it's just having a lot more clarity within our SOW, because I think when we first started our business, things were just a little bit more broad, but as you do more and more business, you learn. So we were like, okay, we're going to have this as part of our scope for any type of event that any client, whether they're new or existing requests. We want to be fair to our clients too, because sometimes I will say in the early days, we would write something too broad and it's not their fault. Like they're just think that that's what we can do. And quite how it's written is that way. So I think it's just a lot of trial and error, but we have a really good rhythm now just because we're in year 7. So we know we can kind of predict what people might want, and just to be really, really clear now.
So clear and reevaluate the words. And this is where I think we get caught up. When I say this word, what do you mean? And when you say this word, what do you mean? And then just making sure that there's not something that can be left to be vague. And then like anything else, it just kind of sounds like failing forward is what I like to say. Just fail forward.
No, it's the same too. Like sometimes we'll work with a vendor and they provide us with a scope of work, and it's just being really it's just being very, very clear, right? We can all learn from things. And, as time goes on, you just get better at it because you've done it more and more times.
So as you guys have grown, and then now you mentioned pre-show that you guys have a team here in the US, you have global contacts, you've done all this stuff. So talk to me a little bit about one of the scariest pieces is bringing on a team, because it's hard to control the factors and the branding. So are you guys comfortable and open to talk about
Sure.
how have you kind of taken that step? And then is it something that you've identified on the front end? How do you grow and bring your team on, but still manage your brand?
So, as you mentioned, one of the scariest things and one of the biggest first initial investments that Meredith and I made was hiring someone because, as we mentioned, we weren't doing sales, we weren't really paying for marketing or anything like that. And so it was a really big decision bringing on our first team member because it had just been Meredith and myself. It was really just the two of us, and it was just us on Zoom every day, problem solving, tag teaming, asking each other, what's your opinion on this? What's your opinion on this? And as our company was growing, it became very clear that we really needed support because I think we were just getting a little bit burnt out, just being the two of us trying to manage the clients and the event planning and running and growing the business. Because of course, as entrepreneurs, you're not just doing what your business set out to do. You also have to run the entire business on the back end. And I think the quick tips that we have that we've learned throughout the years, because it is again trial and error. We have made mistakes with hiring, and you have to be very quick to correct those. I think that's important, and you also have to leave space for people to learn and to grow. I think is important to differentiate, and I really just think it comes with experience of managing a team. However, hiring at the right time is important. I think what we've tried to do is get ahead of hiring instead of hiring later in the game when we're all strapped for bandwidth and we're stressed and it's busy season and we're running a mile a minute, and trying to time the hiring in a right way so that they can start before all of that so they're ready to be thrown in during those really chaotic times. A couple of tips is we hire through referrals mainly because we've learned that along the way. We typically get a referral from someone, and we usually do contract to hire because in our business, it's really important to make sure that somebody's a personality fit, make sure they understand logistically how things work, make sure they are a very hard worker, they show up on time, and there are personality aspects and preferences that Meredith and I have. I think that we've learned over the years that people really need to have those qualities to be able to succeed here at Prospect Events.
So personality fits. And then hiring before you're in the weeds. I think those are the two. And that's the hardest part because it's a scary piece. And you mentioned it. It was a very scary decision. And it's a hard decision because now you're bringing someone on and it's a cost. So it's a lot to take on. But then a lot of times what I see happen is that we wait until we're so far in the weeds that we then don't have time to properly train them, or it's just a much harder battle. And being in operations, I can tell you this, when you are hiring someone, you have to be prepared for it to be harder before it gets easier. So if it's already hard now, you're going to be in a worse spot before you can get better, but it's so that you can take the time to slow down and train them fully. And then there is light at the end of the tunnel. But if you don't take the time to properly train, then you might as well have not done the hire in the first place, because then you're going to be cleaning up a whole mess. If you want to share, if they've been listening and they're interested in what Prospect Events, like where can they find you?
So yes, we'd love for you to check us out at prospectevents.com and find us on Instagram at prospect.events. That's our handle. And also find us on LinkedIn. We also have our own podcast called the Eventful Podcast. We'll be launching our second season probably in early 2026, but we do have a lot of episodes where we actually go really in depth into some of these things that we chatted about here. We interview, and for the first season, all female business owners, creatives, thought leaders.
Yeah. They've been in corporate, they've been working this thing, and they have an idea to go out on their own. What is your number one tip for someone that's on that fence or not quite sure?
Yeah, I would say go with your gut. I think it's a scary thing. I want to acknowledge that. But if you put your mind to something, you can do it. I used to have dreams and aspirations that I could have my own business, but then I was scared. And I think that if your gut tells you to do it, you can do it as long as you put the work into it. And I have zero regrets on it. I feel as though I was meant to do this. And, having a business, like anything, has its ups and downs, but life has its ups and downs as well. So, everything is a risk in life, and just kind of go for it.
And I think, honestly, I like to say too, if it's been put on your heart or on your mind, there's a reason.
Absolutely.
someone out there just waiting for you to have the courage to step up
Mhm.
and take the confidence to pursue it, because it sounds like you guys have taken something and you found someone that you could work well together with, and then
Yeah.
taken something and then made it your own. And you could have stayed at the last company and taken that like that trajectory, but now you guys have taken something that you're really good at, passionate about, and gone off on your own and done it. And you didn't have the fear to reach out to the network that you already had existing,
Yeah.
and that's worked out really, really well. So
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
that.
And I think just being like fearless and confident and okay with failures too. I think nothing's ever going to be smooth, but if you have the drive and the will to do something, you'll be able to do it for sure.
That's great. Okay, so where do you see Prospect going? What's future plans?
We continue to grow and scale our business. I think the future of our business is continuing to provide as we scale, it's always like, can we continue to provide this level of service and customer service to the clients? We never want to let that go. So making sure that we have the staff to be able to continue to provide that level of service to both our existing clients and our future clients, and really expanding the business. We're starting to work with different industries like private equity or travel. So we'd love to see that grow. And then another goal of Jess and mine was building the podcast. So we did that. We launched that in July of this year. And we're also wanting to start Prospect Events branded businesses. It's kind of goes into what we're saying. The whole episode's about kind of branding. And what's interesting about our business, we also have a lot of ideas for events that we want to throw, particularly for women entrepreneurs in the community. And we want them to be Prospect Events branded and kind of just, our vision. So I think that's certainly an area that we're exploring right now. And hopefully within, the next year or two, that'll be a side of our business that we're focusing on.
I cannot wait. That's going to be
Yes.
amazing. So, taking your superpower and making it an event specifically for women owned businesses, I think that's really great. I can't wait to hear
Yeah.
about it. And
Yes.
so, if you've been listening and you know of somebody that could benefit from tips that were shared by Jessica or Meredith on today's episode, please be sure to share. And if you are on the fence or holding yourself back from something that has been on your heart, let this be a reminder that you can take the faith over the fear and just jump out
Mhm.
there and get it done. Fail forward. It's okay. The rest of us are doing it, and you're not alone in that game. So I encourage you, as always, to continue to get out there and make your branded impact.
I love that.
That's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Branded Impact Podcast. If today's episode sparked something in you, please take a second to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend who's ready to unlock their rebrand era. And if you're ready for a brand that's rooted in authenticity and built for impact, one that truly reflects your story, your energy, and your evolution, let's connect. Head to brandingbyjoe.com or DM me on Instagram at brandingbyjoe. Thanks for hanging out. Now get out there, show up with purpose, and make your branded impact. I'll see you next week.